Hey everyone, and welcome back to Roman's Random Riffs.
Roman's Random Riffs.
It's time for another Quickie, where we take a deep dive into one vital aspect of songwriting. The purpose of this is to highlight and share with you one specific piece of information, skill. If you have been following this channel, and especially the dice challenges I'm doing, where I have to write a song from start to finish with a couple of ingredients which are dictated by a set of dice, you'll see me using many of these little tricks and combine them, and that's why I thought it would be interesting to pick one out every time and share it with you. And I'm very excited because today we will be unpacking a very powerful tool for guitarists, which is called the CAGED system. So what is the CAGED system? This system is a way to visualize and navigate the fretboard, because you use 5 basic campfire shapes, and by moving them around on the fretboard you get different chords, but you also get scales that are nearby, because chords are made with notes of a scale. So when there's a chord, there's a scale. And it's a beautiful way to come up with extra parts or find another register to play in when you're playing with somebody else. It can be of great use for your improvisations, but there's many ways to apply this. So there's a C chord, an A chord, a G chord, an E chord, and a D chord. And with those 5 shapes, we can practically play every chord on the neck. This isn't a completely perfect system, but it's close enough to be very useful. Let's take the grandfather of all CAGED shapes, which is an E major chord. If you ever have played a bar chord, an F for example, you're already using the CAGED system without even knowing it maybe. But what you have to do is just move the shape up and bar the open strings with a finger, so you can compensate for those open strings. And this works with every shape. So for instance, a C chord, you can move up. You have to use different fingers though, to also bar the G and the E string. Now it's a D chord. When I move it up a whole note again, it's an E chord, F chord, and so on and so on. So that's great. Then with the A shape we can do the same thing. So bar and then move around. The same goes for a G chord or an E chord like I showed you already. And the last one is a D chord. So all we need to know actually is what the actual notes are of the E and the A string, because when you know that, this trick is very easy. Let's say we want to play an A chord and not over there because somebody else is playing that already in that register. Well, we could say, okay, let's find an A note on the E string. That's over there. So we can use a G shape, which would be a little bit of a warmer voicing compared to the lower one there. Or we could say we use the E shape, and then we get these nice high strings to kind of complement the lower A chord over there. Or we could even say we look for an A note on the A string, that's there, but also on the 12th fret. So with the C shape, ooh, it's a little slightly out of tune, sorry. But you hear that it's still an A chord, played with the C shape though. So that's very cool. 5 shapes to remember and endless possibilities of playing chords. One little thing I like to keep in mind here is there's 2 chords starting on the A string, which is a C shape and an A shape. And there's 2 chords starting from the E string, which is the G shape and the E shape. And then there's one leftover chord, which is the D. And the D is actually hidden in a C shape. When you look at the top strings of a C shape, this is a D chord. So for instance, when you're over here playing an E chord, but you don't want to play the whole shape, you could also just play that, and that still sounds like an E chord. And that gets me to the next point actually, because it can be really nice to not play the whole chords for a certain part. Let's say you're playing with somebody who's playing these campfire chords, which is a C, A minor, F, and C. For instance, I don't necessarily have to play these whole shapes I could do it, it sounds good, but I can also just focus on the top strings, for instance. So I look at the whole shape and then I just say, okay, maybe just the top 3 strings, which is also still a C chord. Then we went to an A minor with an E minor shape. Just the top strings over there. And then we went to an F. We can use the F as a C shape because this is an F note on the A string. So actually we end up using this D shape. That would mean I play. So you already hear a part like this can function as a glue between the fuller voiced chords in a lower position. But this is just one of many examples. I just want to highlight or demonstrate that you don't necessarily have to play the whole shapes the whole time. We could also look for a warmer voicing just on. Still the same progression, but it sounds completely different, as you can tell. So this is a very creative way to come up with extra parts. I don't know if you have seen my previous Quickie video, the first one actually. That was a cool trick to know every chord in a certain scale. If you haven't watched that, go watch it now and then come back to this video, because these two concepts are working beautifully together. So let's say you want to write in a certain key. Let's take the key of C, for example. That's always easy for demonstration. With this trick of the previous video, we know we have a C, an F and a G, and then the minor chords, which is an A minor, a D minor and an E minor. So now with CAGED we could actually play way more in the same register than when we were to use just one shape and move that around, if you know what I mean. So let's say we want to play the same progression of C, A minor and an F. We could say we play it like this. If that is what we want to hear, great, we can stop there. But maybe there is a nicer way to connect those chords by trying to stay in the same frets. So we could play the C as a G shape now. A minor is an E minor, and you already see that some notes are staying the same. And that works as a great glue to glue all these chords together. And then to a F, which is also in the same position. So now these chords are kind of morphing into each other way more fluently than when you kind of crudely move around the neck. Could be a choice as well, there's no right or wrong here, just sonical options, and it's all a matter of your heart and your ears and what you want to hear in the end. Another great way to use this is to add little licks and riffs or little solo improvisations between the chords. Because we have these chords here, your C major scale is also located here. Or A minor for that matter, depending on how you look at it, it's the same thing, starting on a different note. So it's very cool to use that scale in combination with the chords. So let's stick to the same progression and let's try to get some notes in here and there. I'm using another part of the scale over there, because that's the beauty when you start to seeing these patterns, you can connect everything to everything, so you kind of gain total freedom of the fretboard, and that's what we want to achieve in the end. Another great way to use this, and that's actually a way how I also often use the CAGED system, is when I'm playing a solo and I know the chord progression, it's always nice to try to follow the progression and hit notes out of the chords that are being played. This system helps me to get insight into hitting the right notes. For instance, when we have this C, A minor, F progression, and I'm soloing an A minor, because that's the relative minor of C, and I'm playing, I can now and then look for notes that are in the chord. So I use this G shape here to get my, or for that matter, an A shape. It works in both directions. Those are the three notes that make a C a C. So I could target those notes at the time the C is being played. and then we go to A minor, and there's actually one note changing in this thing. So I could try to highlight that in my playing. And then I kind of lead the ear to this A chord, and then we go to the F, and what changes from this A minor to an F is also one note again. So I could try to hit that note at the moment of an F chord in the progression. C, A minor, F, G, C, I mean... I'm just doodling around here, but hopefully you'll get an understanding of what's possible with this. I hope you are still with me and that this wasn't too confusing. A great way to practice this is to write a little progression of simple chords like the one I just used now, C, A minor, F for instance, or it could be anything. And try to look for those chords on different positions using the CAGED system. And once you have figured out where to play the chords, you could maybe look for little licks to connect those chords. And once you're able to do that, you can really elevate your playing and tell stories to really take the listener on a journey. So let's end this quickie with one example of how you could connect all of this and implement all of this in a practical situation. So my intention here is to work my way down using CAGED system and a lick here and there to get from a higher sounding part, which could be used for a verse, towards a lower sounding part, which could be a chorus. I'm just noodling around here and it's far from perfect, but hopefully you can get a glimpse of what's possible with this. And we'll leave it at that for today. Hopefully this was insightful. If you like this, please don't forget to subscribe, like, leave a comment. It helps my channel greatly if you do so. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.